Stephanie, Methany, trash, garbage, white. Your honeymoon period has officially expired. Your defenders, they've tucked their tails and they've ran into hiding. You are now on the chopping block. After what we just saw last night, after what you said in that post-game press conference, the delusion that comes out of your mouth, I'm getting ready to see this post-game press conference, and I'm asking myself, okay, how is Stephanie White going to take credit for Caitlin Clark's play? How is she going to turn it into all about me?
Stephanie White is facing major backlash right now, and Caitlin Clark fans are no longer holding back their frustration. What happened after that game was not viewed as some harmless post-game comment. For many supporters, it felt like the breaking point after months of growing tension surrounding the way this coaching staff continues to speak publicly about the franchise star. Fans have been questioning the tone, the messaging, and the constant hesitation to fully celebrate what Clark has done for this organization, and this latest moment only poured fuel on an already raging fire. The reaction online exploded almost instantly because people who have poured their energy, loyalty, and money into this team felt completely disrespected by what they heard. To them, this was bigger than one press conference. It felt personal, because when a player is carrying a franchise into the national spotlight, filling arenas, shattering records, and transforming the popularity of an entire league, supporters expect that greatness to be acknowledged loudly and clearly by the head coach standing at the podium. And right now, many fans believe that simple recognition should not be difficult at all. And despite all of that, this is still where the situation stands. Stephanie White had the perfect chance to step in front of the cameras and openly praise what Caitlin Clark accomplished on the court that night. But instead, fans were left listening to vague answers, careful deflections, and the kind of polished media responses that only create more frustration. Supporters are starting to feel like the coaching staff is more focused on protecting the overall image of the team than fully recognizing the player carrying the pressure, attention, and expectations of the entire franchise. And fans pick up on that immediately. That is why the reaction exploded the way it did after White's latest comments. To many people, this was never just about one press conference or one quote. It became the latest example in a pattern that Clark supporters believe they have been watching unfold for months. Every time they feel their superstar is downplayed, brushed aside, or pushed into the background, the frustration grows even louder. And once fans started flooding comment sections with clips, screenshots, and side-by-side examples like they were presenting evidence in a trial, it became obvious this controversy had reached a completely different level. People were no longer reacting emotionally just for the sake of it. Fans started revisiting old interviews, comparing past statements, replaying press conference clips, and piecing together a pattern they believe has been building for months around Caitlin Clark. Across social media, the same frustration kept showing up again and again. Supporters feel like this coaching staff constantly downplays the impact of the player who has completely transformed the attention surrounding this franchise, and many believe they have finally reached the point where they cannot ignore it anymore. Clark's fan base believes she deserves stronger public support from the people leading this team, and they are no longer interested in staying quiet about how they feel. Leave your thoughts in the comments, because what unfolded after that game did not sound like random outrage from a few upset fans. It sounded like the release of months of frustration toward a head coach that many supporters believe refuses to give Clark the clear and direct praise her performances continue to earn. Stephanie White stepped to that podium with the perfect opportunity to simply acknowledge greatness after another huge performance, and fans expected a powerful statement that matched what they had just witnessed on the floor. Instead, many walked away feeling like they heard another overly cautious response that shifted attention away from the individual driving the team forward. That is why the reaction became so intense online. To fans, this did not feel like one isolated moment. It felt like another chapter in a pattern they have been tracking all season long, and the emotional response pouring out from supporters is coming from months of watching the same frustrations repeat, without any sign that the situation is changing.
You guys today, Stephanie, Methany, trash, garbage, white. Your honeymoon period has officially expired. Your defenders, they've tucked their tails and they've ran into hiding. You are now on the chopping block. After what we just saw last night, after what you said in that post-game press conference, the delusion that comes out of your mouth, I'm getting ready to see this post-game press conference, and I'm asking myself, okay, how is Stephanie White going to take credit for Caitlin Clark's play? How is she going to turn it into all about me? How is she going to say it was her intelligent play design that got Caitlin Clark going off in the fourth quarter? It was worse than that, folks. It was actually worse than that. Stephanie White gets a direct question about Caitlin Clark's resiliency.
The question sitting with so many viewers right now is impossible to ignore because it keeps surfacing after almost every major performance from Caitlin Clark. Why does it always seem so difficult for Stephanie White to simply praise Clark directly without immediately shifting the conversation somewhere else? Why do so many post-game comments feel focused on systems, adjustments, or team structure instead of fully recognizing the player who just spent the entire night carrying the offense and delivering in the biggest moments? And maybe the biggest concern fans are wrestling with is what this says about the environment behind the scenes when a coach appears hesitant to openly celebrate elite individual greatness without adding conditions or qualifications to it. Supporters have been trying to understand this pattern for months, and many believe the issue stretches far beyond one awkward press conference. Because when a coach repeatedly avoids giving straightforward praise to a player transforming the franchise in real time, fans stop seeing it as coincidence. They start viewing it as something intentional, something deeper, and something that reflects a much larger disconnect growing inside the organization. Situations like this often create a much bigger conversation about leadership, recognition, and who truly represents the identity of a franchise. The best coaches never hesitate to fully embrace their biggest stars because they understand that when a superstar succeeds, the entire organization benefits from it. That is why so many supporters of Caitlin Clark believe the tension surrounding these press conferences keeps growing louder. A large part of the fan base feels like Clark has become the driving force behind the national attention, the packed arenas, and the massive spotlight now surrounding this team. And they believe that reality is still not being acknowledged clearly enough by Stephanie White. Until fans feel that recognition becomes more direct and consistent, every post-game interview is likely to spark the exact same criticism and frustration all over again. And this is where the discussion becomes even more intense for supporters watching closely, because many fans are not only paying attention to what White says about Clark, they are comparing it to the way she speaks about other players on the roster. Supporters notice the difference in tone, energy, and detail whenever praise is handed out publicly. And that comparison is exactly what has fueled so much debate online. When fans feel like one player receives passionate and enthusiastic recognition, while Clark's performances are met with more restrained or carefully measured responses, it only strengthens the belief that something deeper may be happening beneath the surface. Once fans started comparing those post-game responses side by side, the difference became impossible for many people to ignore. Supporters began pointing out how naturally detailed and emotional the praise sounded for certain players, while conversations about Caitlin Clark often felt more restrained, more cautious, and filled with generic coach-style answers that seemed to shift attention somewhere else. And when those kinds of contrasts continue showing up over and over again, fans stop viewing them as random moments. They start seeing a pattern. What intensified the frustration even more was the way that game itself unfolded. For most of the night, the team looked completely disconnected. The offense struggled to generate rhythm, the defensive effort looked inconsistent, and the overall structure on the floor appeared chaotic for long stretches.
Makes it about everybody else. But the great part, receipts were kept. The same question asked about Kelsey Mitchell from a previous game. Stephanie White gives Kelsey Mitchell all the praise in the world. Caitlin Clark doing her thing in the first quarter, back-to-back threes. Stephanie White says, "Come take a seat with me, young one." Second quarter offense, terrible. Second quarter defense, terrible. In the second quarter, this team scored 9 points. Stephanie White, you're garbage. You're trash. 9 points in a quarter with a Caitlin Clark team? You have to actively try to be that bad, right? Third quarter, more uselessness out of our head coach, out of arms crossed McGee, out of eye twitch McGee. More uselessness out of her. Fourth quarter rolls around, Caitlin Clark says, fuck all this. Screw you, and screw you. Let me see. Hines Allen, Lexi. Okay, we're gonna go do our thing, and we're gonna get back in this game. Send me some screens. I'll make the shots. Don't worry about it. Caitlin Clark goes off for 17.
After everything that unfolded, the question sitting in the back of every viewer's mind is hard to ignore. How does a head coach watch a star player completely take over a game after 3 quarters of confusion, inconsistency, and missed execution from the team, and then step into a post-game setting still unable to fully center that individual performance in the conversation? Why does recognition seem so straightforward and effortless in some cases, yet suddenly become measured, cautious, and overly processed the moment Caitlin Clark is the one being discussed? These are the kinds of questions fans are now asking out loud, and they are not fading away. Every replay, every interview clip, and every comparison only adds more fuel to a growing sense that something deeper is happening beneath the surface. From one angle, what fans witnessed was a team struggling to find answers for most of the game, looking disjointed and out of rhythm while the opportunity to control the result slowly slipped away. But from another angle, it was a reminder of what separates a star from everything around her. Because when the game reached its most critical moment, Clark didn't wait for structure or system to save it. She forced the issue, raised the level, and completely shifted the momentum through individual execution and will. That contrast is exactly why the debate continues to grow, because for many fans, these are not isolated moments anymore. They are becoming part of a larger narrative that keeps repeating itself every time expectations, performance, and public acknowledgement collide in the same space.